Welcome to the third presentation from the Connell Mansion Museum of the Historical Society of the Cocalico Valley. In our second presentation, at 5 minutes and 20 seconds into the program, I inadvertently made a mistake which I'd like to correct. Adam Kannemacher married Christina Eicher. It was their son, Dr. Jacob Kannemacher, who married Rebecca Fonstock. The chart, as pictured, is correct. It was my mistake, and I'm sorry. In our first two presentations, the Connell Mansion was examined for its architectural style, its date of origin, its owners, and its interior and outside features. Emphasis was on the genealogies of Moore Connell and Rebecca Connell's families in our second presentation. The focus of this, our third presentation, will be on Moore and Rebecca's life together. How did they meet? What transpired after their wedding? Were there children from this union? Let's find some answers. The probability exists that Mark Connell Jr., Moore Connell's brother, introduced Moore to Rebecca Kannemacher. Around that time, Mark Connell Jr. was the exhibition manager at Ephrata's Mountain Springs Resort. Rebecca Kannemacher's second cousin, Joseph Kannemacher, had established the Mountain Springs Resort in Ephrata in 1848. Joseph Kannemacher was also a partner with William Kannemacher, Rebecca's father, in the quarrying of millstones. Joseph Kannemacher and Mark Connell, employed by Joseph at his resort, were friends. On June 29th of 1857, Moore Connell and Rebecca Kannemacher were married. Both were financially stable. Their first home was in Earlville, which is now Brownstown, in East Earl Township. Their first child, a son, was born April 5th, 1858. The baby lived only a short time. No formal record of this child's name exists. However, in a letter that was penned by a relative, the baby is referred to as Willie. Perhaps Moore and Rebecca had considered naming their firstborn William. Rebecca's father's name was William. Moore and Rebecca buried their first child in God's Acre, in the Ephrata Cloisters Cemetery. He would be joined there by other family members. It is known that Rebecca sojourned at the Mountain Springs Resort after her son's birth and subsequent death shortly thereafter. In April 1859, Moore and Rebecca moved to Ephrata Township. Perhaps Rebecca felt the need to be closer to her family. In Ephrata Township, Moore and Rebecca resided on 48 plus acres in an area designated as Arlingtonville. Before this, Moore had purchased 100 perches of woodland. The land on which the Moore Connells lived was bordered by West Main Street, Cloister Avenue, the Cocalico Creek, and Martin Avenue. A 2 1/2 story brick farmhouse, which formerly had been a tavern, located today at what is 501 West Main Street, Ephrata, became their home. In this house, 5 daughters, of Moore and Rebecca were born. Margaretta, known as Margie, in 1859. Lily in 1860. She died in 1862 and was buried next to her brother in God's Acre. Susan in 1862. Isabella, known by all as Bella, in 1865, and Abby in 1869. During this time, Moore was a farmer, and he is so identified in the 1860 census. Records indicate that he had registered for the Civil War, but he did not serve. In 1868, Moore retired from farming, and he sold the property at 501 West Main Street and the woodland that he owned. He built a house on 1 acre of land at 249 West Main Street, Ephrata, which became known as the Connell Mansion. The building materials for the house were mainly brought to Ephrata via the Reading and Columbia Railroad, which had been completed in Ephrata just a few years before, in July 1863. The Connell House was completed in 1869. That same year, Moore purchased lots on both sides of the mansion. In 1870, another daughter was born to Moore and Rebecca. Named Mary, this daughter died in 1871. She also, like her siblings, was buried in God's Acre. That same year, Moore added a new kitchen to the house and had a carriage house built outside at the rear of the property. The original kitchen now became the dining room, and the original dining room became Moore's study and library. In 1875, the couple's last child, a daughter, was born. She was named Nora. The room in which I stand today is the master bedroom in the Connell Mansion. It is located on the second floor, and it has been restored to how it would have appeared when this house was first built. The bedroom suite is the original bedroom suite of Moore and Rebecca Connell. The curtains that you see behind me at the windows were the original curtains. They are graced by wooden tassels, some of which are missing, but they are the curtains that were placed here when the house was built. Now known as a retired gentleman farmer, Moore lived off his investments and supplemented his income by money paid to him as ground rent on Pearl Street in Philadelphia. Moore suffered from various ailments which were related to an earlier bout with malaria. And when he died on August 8th of 1881, the cause of death was listed as blood poisoning resulting from malaria. Moore was only 50 years old at the time of his death. Rebecca, his wife, was just 45. Their daughters at this time were 22, 19, 15, 12, and 6 years old. Rebecca's mother, Lydia Miller Kannemacher, had become a widow only 6 months earlier when her husband, Rebecca's father, died in February of 1881. Moore was buried in God's Acre next to his children, earlier deceased. Shortly after Moore's death, Lydia Miller Connellmacher moved to the Connell mansion. It was there that she resided with her widowed daughter, Rebecca, and her granddaughters until her own death in 1901. By 1895, Rebecca had begun investing in real estate in Ephrata. She was wise in her investments and was very much interested in the development of Ephrata. Rebecca supported the incorporation of the borough and the purchase of its first town hall. She, along with other borough residents, purchased an electric light bond in support of Ephrata's electric power plant. Social activities, parties, meetings of the minds, musical entertainment, plays, and readings often took place in the Connell mansion. The Moore Connells were known as good hosts. Rebecca Connell died on November 22nd, 1908. She was 72 years old. A Lutheran by faith, she was buried next to her husband Moore and 4 of their 8 children, an unnamed son and daughters Lily, Mary, and Abby in God's Acre at the Ephrata Cloister. It is thought that Rebecca did not wish for her daughters to marry, but rather remain single, living together as a family unit in the Connell mansion. Margie, Bella, and Nora were designated trustees of their sister Susan's person and estate due to Susan's impaired mental and physical condition. Rebecca requested in her will that no chickens should be on the property unless they were owned by all of her daughters. When the Connell mansion was purchased by the Historical Society of the Cocalico Valley, a small frame chicken house was standing at the rear of the property between the privy and the carriage house. At this point, the presentation comes to completion. We hope you feel better acquainted with the union of Moore and Rebecca, their individual personalities, and their involvement in the development of the Cocalico Valley. Our next presentation will focus on the children of Moore and Rebecca Connell. Their stories are very interesting. Please join us. Please remember the Historical Society of the Cocalico Valley is a non-profit organization and exists solely through contributions from the public. All donations are appreciated and may be sent to the Historical Society of the Cocalico Valley at 237 to 249 West Main Street, Ephrata, Pennsylvania, 17522. No gift is ever too small or too large. Until we talk again, take care.